Okay, so I'm Noah Garmez, editor-in-chief of The Milking Cat,
I'm Sophie Cohen, an executive editor of The Milking Cat.
and tonight we are joined by a very special guest. He is known for his work writing and producing for several shows, including Malcolm in the Middle, Two Broke Girls, and Third Rock from the Sun. He's been nominated for two primetime Emmys, and he's written a book. Welcome, Michael Glouberman.
Thank you. You've done more homework than I expected. That was basically everything I had to tell you. But thanks. Glad to be here.
So, all of the staff at The Milking Cat are currently in high school. So, we want to take it back a little bit and get to know high school Michael. What were you like in high school? Were you funny or were you cool?
Are those mutually exclusive?
I think so.
I think I was funnier than I was cool, but I was kind of cool too, I guess. But yeah, I was what you could call the class clown, and I was thrown out of class pretty often for being a wise guy and being just too witty for my teachers, I guess.
So, would you say that your interest in comedy started in high school or maybe earlier or later?
I loved writing. I'm from Montreal originally, and I moved to Los Angeles when I was 10. So it wasn't like I came to LA to chase after writing. I did it because my family forced me to. I loved creative writing since I was a kid. In high school, I loved creative writing stories and reading them to my friends and having them laugh and stuff like that. Having no idea that this is what I was going to do for the rest of my life. But yeah, I've always loved it, enjoyed it, and it's been something that I've always been passionate about.
When did you first getting involved in comedy specifically?
In comedy specifically? Well, so like I said, I used to, when we used to have to do creative writing for high school and stuff like that, my stuff was generally the stuff that people laughed at. So I kind of knew that I could make people laugh doing that. And I just built on that. In college, I took creative writing and also, stuck pretty close to comedy and just, fun stuff. Never got too deep or too dark or anything like that.
How would you describe your brainstorming process? Do ideas just come to you, or like do you have to sit down and write?
You know what? It's a combination of both, because it's a really good question. I think some things just hit me sometimes. It really depends on what I'm working on or that. But like I have a lot of funny ideas all the time, or at least what I think is funny. My wife does not agree at all. But sometimes when I'm working on something, a joke comes right away, and sometimes you got to sit down and think about it for a while and come up with a bunch of bad jokes before you come up with with a good one that you're happy with. So it's a combination. It works. It works in all different kinds of ways. The kind of job that I have, I may be jumping ahead here, but it's very collaborative. There's a team of writers. There's on every show that I've been on, there's a team of writers, and a lot of it is sitting in a room and just screwing around and laughing and telling stories and telling jokes and just, having fun and just getting creative juices going. And then, someone says something and someone else says something else. And that's, that gives me an idea for something here. And there's just a lot of ways that it gets created, which is one of the great things about it. Because sometimes, like I said, there's a lot of stuff we do as a group, and then sometimes you have to go off and write by yourself. So you have to be able to do both.
Outside of the writer's room, do you have people that are your go-tos for bouncing ideas off of, or like pitching your jokes to?
Well, I have a bunch of friends who are writers as well, and my daughter is actually just became a writer this year. She's a staff writer on Young Sheldon. So she followed. So she's, as she was trying to do that, she was a writer's assistant for a while on that show and on she was a writer's assistant on that show, and she's also a writer's assistant on Big Bang Theory. So she's been wanting to do this for a while. So she was the one in the family that kind of got my jokes more than the others. Yeah, the rest of my kids and my wife generally roll their eyes at a lot of the stuff I say, you know, dad jokes and stuff like that. But yeah, it's you know, it's good to have other, you know, people that I wouldn't say I like necessarily bounce stuff off. Although, you know, even when I write a script, I'll generally have some friends read it, but it's mostly people who are in the business and stuff like that who can, you know, give input and stuff like that and suggestions and maybe pitch some jokes that are better than mine.
Have you ever experienced writer's block? And what do you do to work through that?
Absolutely, it happens all the time. It's like, I think the two enemies of writing are writer's block and procrastination. And you guys are young, but if this is something you go after, you will see that it's writers like to procrastinate probably more than they like to write. They like to talk about writing and live the life of writing without actually writing. But once you sit down, you know, you gotta force yourself to sit down in procrastinating, and also when you have writer's block, when you don't know what you're gonna, you know, you whether you're starting at the beginning and you're totally blank, or you have a scene that you have to write and you're just not seeing where the funny is, because there's different, you know, there's different parts of the writing that's involved. There's a story that has to make sense and there has to be a drive, and there has to be, you know, each character has to be wanting something, and there's, you know, following the story, which is usually easier to come up with than the jokes that go along with it. So, but either way, you just got to sit down and, you know, start thinking about it, and then you write out your first idea, and then sometimes you'll just go, you know, you'll see that you got to a, you know, a dead end. That didn't work. I'll try something else. And then you do that, and then you try something else, and until finally you get somewhere where it's like, good enough, I guess.
Would you say that the story usually comes before the jokes, or do you sometimes like work the story around a joke that you have in mind?
That is a pitfall that we try not to fall into, that it's like, oh, I got a joke, I got to write a story around it. No, it's definitely, I mean, especially when it's for like a show that you're writing for, and there's network and studio, because all they, you know, jokes come and go. You can, you know, we change jokes all the time. Some jokes work, some don't. You got to beat some jokes. Some jokes just, you know, it works at some point, but when you rewrite the scene, the joke no longer fits or something like that. So it's really the story that comes first. You got to find, you know, oh, this is what's going to happen. There's going to be, the couple's going to fight, and then they're going to make up and whatever like that. And then you go back and say, all right, so, you know, what's funny in that scene? You have to, you can't say, oh, here's funny, what's the scene? Yeah, here's the scene, what's funny about it? That's the way it generally works.
So were there any comedians or TV shows you were inspired by growing up and starting your career?
Oh yeah, I'm going to name a bunch of shows that were on way before you guys were born, but growing up, there was, I don't know if you've ever heard of Must See TV, which was what they called the NBC on Thursday nights, which was Cheers, and then Night Court, and then was Seinfeld? No, Seinfeld came later, but it was. I know that the definitely the first few specs that I wrote were Cheers. Have you guys ever seen the show?
Ted Danson?
First episode the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. So that was the first show that I really loved and kind of understood as even as a teenager at the time. I kind of, you know, it's like when you're a kid, you watch kids shows and stuff like that, and you watch other shows for just, you know, for laughing and stuff like that. But I think that was the first show that really made me go wow and make me think I want to do this. So what was it? Oh, Cosby Show was on that. There was one other, Cheers, Night Court. There was another biggie there. I'm blanking on what it was, but definitely, yeah.
So what is it like to be in a writer's room? Can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, there's usually somewhere between 8, 9, 10 people, although some staffs have a lot bigger, like The Simpsons has like 25 or even more than that writers, but it's generally around 10, and we sit around a room. Sometimes it's around a big conference table. Sometimes it's on couches and stuff like that. And like I said, there's a rule that is across the board in most writers' room. That's like, what happens in the writers' room stays in the writers' room. So now I'm going to tell you what happens in the writers' room. So I'm going to let out some things, but it's you generally, like, especially on a new show, you have to get to know each other, because you have to be able to be comfortable to tell each other very personal things, because most good writing comes from personal experiences. It's, there's a lot of show, I mean, if you're writing for a show about aliens, you're not going to have many personal experiences. But the thing is that, like, you tell stories about your childhood, you tell stories about your kids, about your family, your wife and stuff like that, and experiences you've had, and you kind of expose yourself, and everyone does that. And then you kind of start feeling safe with each other, and then you start feeling, more comfortable pitching, basically, or talking about anything that comes to your mind. And then you start, so it takes, a couple of weeks to start getting comfortable with each other. And then you start really melding and start talking about, whatever show you're doing. You just have to start from, if it's a new show, basically inventing the characters and stuff like that, and talking about their backgrounds and who they are, and, make them three-dimensional people. So, they're not just caricatures, and, you can find comedy from all different kinds of, their hobbies, the way they talk, or, what they're afraid of and stuff like that. So you talk about the characters, and then you start talking about stories, about, what, generally, with the main characters, and, you bring in others, outside characters and stuff like that. And you talk about, what's a good story, what, because generally when you come into a new show, the guy who created the show has some ideas.
It's 9 o'clock.
Sorry.
Not
My computer talk.
Crazy. But you start talking about, the stories and the arc of the season, where we're starting within the season, where you want to be at the end of the season, and maybe some small story arcs of, like, romantic story arcs that might be smaller, that might be like 3 or 4 episodes, or job arcs, or, whatever the drive is for your characters over the course of the season. Like the show I'm working on right now is called How We Roll, and it's going to be on CBS. It's coming on in March, and it's about a guy who gets laid off from his factory job and decides to pursue his dream of becoming a professional bowler. And not necessarily my cup of tea. I hate bowling. I was always bad at it. My fingers were always too fat to fit in the balls, so I had to.
I'm scared of what's inside of the holes.
Well, you can peek in first, but yeah, or what's been in there, or what's been on the fingers of people who've had their fingers in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like peeking in is like an invasion of privacy, though, so I kind of like to let it be. Just kind of.
You're invading the bowling ball's privacy.
Yeah, so you gotta like go for the plunge.
I hear you. But so where was I going? Oh yeah, so we started talking about, like, we're basically starting with him getting laid off, and then we are progressing. We wanted to end the season with him making it to the, basically the World Series of bowling, which I'd never heard of, but apparently is a thing. So we find our little tent poles along the season, which are like, oh, at this episode, like episode 4, we want this to happen. He's going to have a crisis of confidence, or, he's going to lose his, he's going to, just all, whatever the storylines are, we kind of plot that out, and then we dig in, starting with episode 1, and we sit around, all the writers, and we talk about, okay, this is what's going to happen in the first episode. And I already forget what happens, or else I would tell you what that is now, although I'm probably not supposed to tell you. But and we start talking about, in general, what the story is going to be, kind of, well, we know we have a beginning, we kind of have an ending, and that's what it is. And then we start breaking it down scene by scene. All right, we start in the kitchen. He wakes up. It's his first day of being a professional bowler. What's he going to do? What does his family say? How do they feel? He's lost his job. Everyone's afraid. They don't have money, but and like, all right, they're using coupons, and instead of buying Lucky Charms, they're buying, they're using, the generic brand, which doesn't have, a little leprechaun, it's got an angry dragon or whatever, come up with the jokes and stuff like that. And you kind of beat out what the story is going to be for that first episode. And here, I'll just give you like a very quick run through on how things work. So once you have a story area, we have to give it to, we have a studio, which is CBS, and then we have a network, which is also CBS, but that's the network. CBS, the studio and network are separate. Mm-hmm. So we have to send it into the studio. They give us notes. We address their notes. Then it goes to the network. They give us notes. Then we address the notes. And now we're like approved with that story. And then we turn that story into a full-on outline. And then we give it to the studio. They give us notes again. We address the notes, give it to the network. They give us notes. We address those notes again. And now we're okay to go off on script. And now there's different ways of doing it. There's sometimes some shows, one writer will go off and write the episode. Sometimes we will all sit in a room with a couple of monitors around the room, and we will write the show together, basically line by line, going through it, like they walk in the door, what happens next? And we, so I've worked on shows that do it both ways. I like them both. It's always fun to be around people. And lunch is free if you're in the office. So, so where was, oh yeah, so then you write a script, whether it's alone or with the group, and then you send the script to the studio. They give you notes. You have to address all their notes. Then they give the script to the network, and they give you notes, and then you address all those. And then it's finally, okay, you're ready for a table read that's going to get shot in a week. And then the actors all sit there and they read the script in front of us and the network and studio, and then we get more notes. And then, jokes that didn't work, storylines that aren't clear, whatever, they give you notes. We address those notes. We have to address them that day because the next day the actors are going to be rehearsing the script. And so the next day, we go in and watch the actors rehearse, and we see what works and what didn't work, on its feet, it's called, because they're actually acting the stuff out. And then we get notes again from the studio network, and we go and make changes, and then they rehearse it again the next day. And it feels like Groundhog Day because it's over and over and over again. By the time you see a show on television, it's been gone through 20 rounds of notes and countless rewrites. And that is what, and in addition to this, so this is what's going on one script. In the meantime, we have to keep the trains rolling. So when you have something at script level, you also have something at story level, something at outline level, and you're constantly, if you're not watching a run through, you're getting notes on a story, or we're getting notes on an outline, and you're constantly addressing this while you're going to watch that. So it's hard to keep track of, like, you come in and go, which story are we doing again? With like, wait, what happened to that? Oh, that scene's in another script. Forget it. Never mind. So it's a mess, but that's how it works.
What's the timeline like for that process to get like a season of TV done?
Okay, so the writing room generally starts about 10 weeks before we start production. So in those 10 weeks, we scramble to hopefully get 6 scripts written by that point. And if we're lucky, generally like 6. And then things slow down because then you're in production, and then you got to go to run-throughs and you got to do rewrites and stuff like that. So like right now we are shooting episode, why isn't there a number on this? There should be, oh, it's 108. We're shooting 108, and we've just written 109, and I was just working on the outline for 110. So it's getting close. The train becomes closer and closer, and you get more scared and more panicked. It's like, I'm running out of time. We got to get this done. So there's a lot of shows that I've been on where we work till midnight or 1 a.m. and stuff like that, just to stay ahead and things. This show's pretty well run, so the hours aren't too bad. But sometimes, like I said, if it's pre-production, we can have weeks in advance. Sometimes we're just days ahead of shooting stuff.
Would you say that TV is your favorite medium of comedy, or do you like movies or reading, or satire articles better?
I'm a tough critic. It's hard for me to find stuff that I like because I just look and see that that's sloppy writing. That could be a better joke over here, over there. I love a really good comedy movie. I love reading humor writing, and there's some shows on TV that I think are really funny, but my wife thinks I'm a comedy snob, which I guess it's true, but it's just out of being a perfectionist and going, seriously, you people are just sloppy and lazy if that's what you consider to be a blow for a um, a scene. So I love them all if it's good.
Do you have a favorite joke, yours or someone else's?
A favorite joke. You mean that's been in a script or just a favorite knock joke? um, you're putting me on the spot. I can't think of a favorite joke. That's the thing is like I said, it is so there is so you're churning and churning and churning out jokes after joke, and one of the one of the major rules or something you got to learn quick is you have to let your favorite jokes die, because if it doesn't work in a scene, gone. It's got to go, and you can love it as much as you want, but it doesn't work, so goodbye. I mean, I guess there's some jokes that I remember that I'm pretty proud of from other shows from shows I've worked on like years ago and stuff like that, but it's generally in context to
Yeah.
what's going on, so it's hard to tell you a joke now because you will go, what the hell is he talking about? Because it doesn't make any sense at that point. So
Do you ever watch, like, do you ever just see the shows you've worked on, like, on TV, if they're just on, do you ever, like, sit down and just watch them if they're being, like,
I'll
syndicated?
watch some stuff. Yeah, I definitely. I mean, it's the shows that I liked that I worked on that I will very happily sit down and watch. There's some shows that I did not like, but it's a job's a job. I won't mention any names. Two Broke Girls. But there's just some shows that like it was fine writing for him, but unless you're forcing me to watch it, I won't. Like Malcolm and, like you said, Third Rock, and there's some other shows that I'm very happy to sit down and watch and enjoy.
And what TV shows are you watching now that you would recommend, or that you're enjoying now?
Rick and Morty. What They Do in the Shadows. I don't know if you guys watch that.
My brother's watching it right now.
Yeah, it's really funny. Comedy wise, I'm trying to think what else do I watch? Like I said, I'm pretty snobby about this, so it's like not there's what do you guys watch? I'll tell you.
Right now I'm watching Enlightened.
I've not seen it.
I like it. I just watched The White Lotus.
Oh, watched the White Lotus. What do you think?
I thought there were really funny moments that I liked, and I liked the characters.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it an outright comedy. I mean, Mike White writes very specific, very odd stuff, and it can be very funny, but it's also very dark. Yeah.
Yeah, his show Enlightened it's so funny sometimes, but really dark.
What's that one about?
It's starring Laura Dern, and she like has like a nervous breakdown, and she gets fired from her job, and then she comes back after treatment, and she's like so positive. It's really funny.
Okay, and it's on what's it on?
I'm watching it on Crave TV. That's the Canadian one. I think it's on HBO. I'm not sure though.
Okay. How about you, Sophie?
I'm watching Difficult People right now.
Oh, is that with Julie Klausner and
Yeah, and Billy Eichner.
I love Billy on the Street. What is it? Okay, that one's
Yeah,
funny.
I like any show where like the premise is complaining.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate that one.
So you a Curb fan?
Yes, and I was like totally reluctant to watch Seinfeld for years, and then I started watching it recently, and I like blew through the entire thing in like a month, and I realized something that was like really just upsetting to me. My dad stole his entire personality from Seinfeld. The bit about the hand model, the bit about the decaf coffee, like the frilly shirt, like everything's in there.
Did he claim those were his stories and didn't tell you that he
He's
swiped from
he's
Seinfeld?
not the man that I thought he was.
Well, at some point, everyone has to realize that about their
I
parents.
know.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah. My son, when he was 13 or 14, he went into his bedroom for a weekend and came out with these dazed eyes and said he just watched all of The Simpsons. Like 500 episodes or something like that. Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's really impressive. Um, do you do you have is there anything that you wish you could have done differently through your career?
No, I think I've been, let me think, done differently. I've been pretty happy with what I've done, and taking a look back and what I've accomplished. I don't have any regrets really. I mean, there's things I could have done better, I suppose, but nah.
Great.
Yeah, I'm not someone who does a lot of looking back.
And our last question is if you have any advice for aspiring sitcom writers.
Well, I'll tell you how I got in, and I highly recommend this. Do really badly in college so you don't get into the major that you want to get into. Then scramble around, look for a major that'll get you graduated in 4 years, and then come out and say, I don't want to do that at all. Then get a job at a company that's going out of business. So like while everyone else is just going out on job interviews, you have time to sit and do nothing but write. And that's how I got started. So that's, I'm in kidding aside, that my advice would be is just write. And you're not going to be happy with what you come, unless you're great, or unless you're deluded, you're not going to be happy with what you come up with right off the bat. But it's writing is a muscle, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. And even if you're not going to be great, like the first script I wrote, tossed it away, and then I just kept going and kept doing it. And I don't know, I fooled people into thinking I was decent at it.
What kind of path did you take to get your writing out there and like working together?
I hustled and sent out scripts to all different kinds of agents, and I finally got one who was a one-man shop out of the basement out of some other company, and he was a really bad agent, but he had a lot of unemployed writers. But he hooked me up with another one of his unemployed writers, and we were a team for probably about 8 or 9 years, and we worked on Third Rock together for 4 years, and then we were together for about the first 3 or 4 years on Malcolm, until I finally said maybe we should go our own paths. I've been talking, but I forgot your question. Did I answer your question? I don't
Yeah,
know.
you got it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this interview.
Absolutely, it was fun.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so is this just goes on
On our website, yeah.
website? All right, cool.
Mhm.
Send me a link. I'd love to hear myself talk for a while. No one else does, so why shouldn't I? Yeah, no, really nice to meet you guys, and good luck with this. And it was fun.
Yeah. Thanks.
So nice to
Oh,
meet you.
I have to say, I saw that you wrote an episode of Wilfred.
I did.
Yeah, I love that show. I love it. It's so
Yeah.
bizarre, but yeah.
It was weird. I just got a call out of nowhere from the showrunner saying, "Hey, you want to write an episode?" And I didn't even know the guy. I don't know. I don't even remember who like recommended me, but he said, "Hey, yeah, we'd love for you to write an episode." So I wrote an episode. And
Still running?
no,
Oh, no, this was before.
this was way back when.
Yeah,
this
yeah.
was way
I was
back
like,
when. Yeah,
okay,
no, this was at least 10 years ago, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, but it was fun.
I think it's very cool. I always recommend that show to people, and then they watch it and they're like, "You're sick for liking this."
Have you seen the British version of it? It's even weirder. Yeah, you should check that.
Yeah, is it like the regular version except they eat beans on toast as their
Exactly, the doggies. There's guys in cat suits and stuff that he chases and stuff like that. So it's places they didn't go in the American version.
Oh no. That's so funny. Yeah, thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Cool. All right. Good night, guys. Go to bed.
Hey, it was so nice to meet you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.